Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Vintage Children's Book Vault. Today, I wanted to introduce you to one of my favorite books that I have found going back into the past called Granny's Wonderful Chair by Frances Browne. This was a complete fluke. I had no idea, never heard of this before. Um, I just thought it looked interesting. And I do have the 1963 edition. This was originally written in 1856. um, yeah, 1856, by Frances Browne, and a couple of amazing things. One, um, it was written so far back in time, but the stories are still relevant today, and they are very unique and engaging and entertaining stories. At the same time, what is also interesting is Frances Browne. She was blind at 18 months old, and she is the one who wrote these stories. And um, despite her being blind, they are very vivid, and it is an amazing set of stories inside of another like fairy tale framework. So it's a fairy tale within a fairy tale, and it's about a little girl named Snowflower who ends up living with her grandmother, and her grandmother is kind of a curmudgeon, and her name is Dame Frostyface, and all of the main people in this story, their names reflect their attitude more or less. But the one thing about Dame Frostyface, no matter how cold she is, she loves her granddaughter, and loves her granddaughter Snowflower, and they live in poverty together. And one day, Dame Frostyface has to leave. She's going to go see her sister, who is even colder than anybody in the world. So, um, yeah, she says, "My child, I'm going on a long journey to visit an aunt of mine who lives far in the North Country. I cannot take you with me because my aunt is the crossest woman alive and never liked young children." And then goes on to say, but she's left her the hands that will lay her the eggs, and that the most important thing is that she is leaving her chair, um, to uh, leaving her chair to Snowflower, and the chair tells a unique story every day. So whenever she gets lonely, she can just put her head down on the chair and request a story from it, and it'll help her to not be lonely. Also, the chair can help her travel to new places. So she says, "Lay your head gently down on the cushion of the armchair and say, 'Chair of my grandmother, tell me a story. It was made by a cunning fairy who lived in the forest when I was young, and she gave it to me because she knew nobody could keep what they got hold of better. Remember, you must never ask a story more than once in the day, and if there be any occasion to travel, you have only to seat yourself in it and say, Chair of my grandmother, take me such a way. It'll carry you wherever you wish. But mind to oil the wheels before you set out, for I've sat on it these 40 years in the same corner.'" And so um, after the Snowflower is alone for quite some time, she does want to travel. And so she asks the chair to take her somewhere, and she runs into a woodcutter who is the woodcutter of the king, and they're preparing for a big feast for the princess's birthday. And so she ends up going into the castle, and uh, there she meets the king and the queen and the princess. And the queen and the princess are very greedy and sour, as in their names, Queen Wantall, and I think it's Princess Greedland. I need to find it again, but uh, and then the king's name is King Winwealth, and King Winwealth is always very melancholy and sad, and we don't know exactly why, but he just never he can never just be in good spirits, except for his page wisely says, um, reminds him that this girl has arrived with her chair and it's so unique. Let her come and tell you a story. And he says, "I've not heard a story this many a year. Bring the child and the chair instantly." And so Snowflower comes, and she's in her rags and her dirty feet. She just tries to like make herself up the best she can. And the queen and Princess Greedland um, resent her because how dare she be a barefooted girl in an old chair allowed into the banquet hall. But then, so every chapter is the Snowflower's way of trying to entertain the king. And so uh, you see she lays her head down on the velvet cushion, as she's used to do in the old cottage, and said, "Chair of my grandmother, tell me a story." And then everyone's astonished when a clear voice from under the cushion said, "Listen to the story of the Christmas cuckoo." So there are, back here, each chapter contains a completely different story. The Christmas Cuckoo, The Lords of the White and Grey Castles, The Greedy Shepherd, The Story of Fairyfoot, The Story of Childe Charity, Sour and Evil, The Story of Merrymind, and Prince Wisewit's Return. And so these are all stories that have morals in them. They're very unique stories. I haven't heard them before. And they all focus on kindness and generosity. They kind of counter the grim fairy tales. So there's uh, reward being similar to L. Frank Baum, like where kindness is its own reward, or you should be kind, um, not to not be kind to avoid punishment, but just to be kind to your fellow person. And so those are the main elements of the story, and like acceptance and tolerance and things like that. And I did find that, again, being female, looking back into the past, I was very sensitive to, especially growing up, I was really sensitive to, I couldn't find a lot of female characters that I really enjoyed or thought were strong characters. And so when I go into the past, I'm a little bit afraid of what I'm going to find. And I keep getting completely delighted in seeing that the female characters are very complex, they are nuanced, they're um, often very heroic. And it's not based on gender, it's based on the content of character. So um, that's what this book has. I think it just is, it translates so well to today. And the 1963 version does have some updated illustrations in it, and my understanding, it also the language is much more modern, so, or it's more modern to be easier for us to read, which I don't mind at all, because I don't enjoy reading Victorian styles. But so I will page a little bit through here. The stories do move pretty quickly. I think it takes about 20 minutes to read each one. Um, and you'll see the different illustrations. And I will say, myself and my kids were just rapt listening to the stories. So one of our favorites. And so definitely recommend going and finding Granny's Wonderful Chair by Frances Browne.